Going on, Mark?
Hey, just admiring this 2-page splash, wondering when the rest of these are going to come out.
Hopefully, very soon. We would think. We would
Yeah.
think. Yeah. So we're actually up to issue number 4 of Absolute Wonder Woman, and you know what? Wonder Woman she's got a big ass sword, but we didn't realize exactly how big.
Mm-mm.
But we'll talk about that in just a second. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. It's that little thumbs up right down there, just below us. Make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. And what's the last? And hit the notification bell. That's the one I'm trying to think of, so that you're alerted whenever we upload new content. So I called it a sword, but it almost is it more like a cleaver? I mean, what is he? It's like it's
I think it is what she needs it to be.
exactly. If you recall, at the end of the last issue, Wonder Woman's plan was to make everybody deaf, because the bad guy, the
Tetrahide?
Tetrahide, was going to emit this noise that would make everyone come to them, so that he could basically kill them. And I'm assuming it's a male Tetrahide, but it could be a female. So
I don't judge.
no diss, no diss intended.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so we start with Etta Candy, and
Our
someone
introduction to absolute
exactly,
etiquette.
and someone who we kind of find out to be her sister, which is Gia Candy, and they're basically watching the news and they're passing notes to each other,
Because they can't hear nothing.
because they can't hear anything, right? Exactly,
They hear a knock on the door, though, ironically enough.
right.
Well, no, they just open it. Yeah, I was about to say they didn't knock.
Because Etta is saying that she's going to go out. She's going to go out and try to help people. So she basically opens the door, and who's there but Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman. Diana is there.
Yep. And they come in, and as soon as they come in, they can start hearing again. Wonder Woman reveals that we got a little micro spell in this room, just restoring hearing, so we can talk because we need the help of these candies.
Right, exactly. And why do we need the help of these candies? Because Gia is apparently a witch.
And they're surrounded by a witchy store with all kinds of cool stuff in there. There's a lot to look at in this issue. Just throwing that out. There's a lot of little details in the sets. Like it might be plain art on the faces, but there's a lot of detail in the environment in this book that I'm really enjoying. And this shop that they're in is definitely one of those places.
Yeah, and Wonder Woman says that, surprisingly, a lot of the stuff that we have here in man's world, or whatever they want to call it, is actually very rare on Paradise Island, or where she came from in Hell.
Yeah, well, ain't no Paradise Island.
Right.
Yeah. Go figure that grass and ragweed and witch hazel is very rare in Hell.
Right, exactly.
But
that's what she needs.
Learned that her potions, her spells that she concocts there are kind of simple for her to do on this side of existence.
Right, and she needs all of that because her plan is to concoct a spell that will give her arm back.
She's going to need it for what lies ahead, fighting the Tetrahide. The metal arm that was forged by Hephaestus is great, but isn't up for this task.
Right. So she basically says to Etta and Gia and Steve, I need to go somewhere outside of this room. And they're like, why? She's like, because there's going to be a lot of blood.
It's going to get messy, real messy. It's a blood spell, a very powerful blood spell that's used to forge this arm.
Right. So she says some things, not the witchy things that you would think of, like Eye of Newt and Tongue of Lizard or things like that.
None of that.
Yeah. She says some things. We don't actually get to hear the actual spell, other than the very beginning. She basically says, to her, is it Hecate or Hecate? I'm going to call it Hecate.
Hecate.
Who is the person that she's praying to. And she says some things, about, to try and help her. And then she devolves into some things that we don't actually get to see what they are. And she's basically, hit by lightning. And at that point, we then travel back in time again to...
flashback.
Exactly.
To the wild island in Hell.
Right. And Circe. who is basically pleading with Hecate, who we will see has basically 6 arms. But there is there's some dialogue that goes on.
Well, this is a really cool start to a story
Yeah.
for Cersei, though. And all, like she's begging for help, crying out because of her situation being stuck there. I believe she's crying out at this point, having the child with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's talking about how like she can't believe she's in this situation, and Hecate is talking about how this is all intentional, and she's in this situation for a reason because what lies ahead that she can't see, and like given the chance again, she would put her right here, and Hecate actually appears to her, which they did in a sense that made me feel like that was a big deal. It isn't something that you would normally do, but we get a great shot of her. So I really feel like they're teeing us up for like this is really the start to like the real what lies ahead kind of thing. For whatever Hecate felt the need to put Cersei here in this situation, stuck on the Wild Isle, having to raise Diana, it's all for some kind of great problem that they have in their future.
Yes, at one point Hecate actually says there is a great game afoot, so I'm going to imagine that we may circle back to that to see exactly.
It's the War of the Gods, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
this has got to be the start of the absolute War of the Gods, is what I'm thinking.
You would think, yeah. Gods never play very well together.
No, they don't.
When gods get together, a lot of times there's just chaos.
Chaos. Yes. R.I.P. that show.
Exactly.
Gone too soon.
Right.
But yeah, she after talking to Hecate, she comes back and walks back into her house with Diana, an older child, Diana. And I love this, and it's the subtleties in the art again. The settings tell the story. Diana's laying in bed, and there's little small monsters and demons that are all surrounding her in bed, sleeping by her peacefully. Like it just plays to the nature of Diana, even out of the element we would normally see her in. She still is like this overpowering force of good and compassion. And Cersei just curls up next to her in bed, and she asks her what she was dreaming about, and Cersei tells her the future. So again, just playing into this what lies ahead thing.
Right. And when we see what lies ahead on the very next page, we flash back to current. Diana now has her arm with the tattoo and everything that we were used to from the first couple issues. She is basically promising to Hecate that she will win or she will die. There is no try. If you were Yoda,
there's no try, only done.
Yeah, exactly. And basically, the first thing that Gia says to her is, "You may want to get all that blood off your face."
Yeah, there's a lot of blood.
Yeah,
she's into some weird stuff, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so wild. It's so odd seeing such a peaceful, compassionate creature do things that are always associated with the opposite. Like a blood spell, like pouring blood all over yourself and coming from hell and everything. It racks my brain a little bit. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. At some point, and we forgot to mention this, at one point, Edda and Steve were talking about Wonder Woman when they first entered into the apartment or whatever. And, Edda basically says to Steve, "Hey, this was the person you were telling me about?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You undersold her."
Yeah.
So we go back and we see the Tetrahide is now basically in the city now. It's starting to almost kind of like plant roots. But that means, from what Diana says, is once it starts to do that, that means that it's no longer sending out that signal to call people to it. And that's when we get the sword or the cleaver, or whatever you want to call it, on steroids. She basically, again, starts to talk in Greek, I would assume. She does a little spell, and her sword rises out of the ocean and grows to a huge size. And it also, besides that, it starts the spell starts talking to the Tetrahide.
Yeah, she pulled a potion bottle out.
Right.
It says to give the Tetrahide what it wants, and
right.
Throws it, and it starts sending screams of help and pleas, which is supposed to be what the city is doing. If it wasn't death, it would be screaming for help, drawing the Tetrahide to the noise.
Right, and the goal is again, like you just said, to draw the Tetrahide away from the city and out towards the ocean.
Where a big ass sword is waiting.
Yeah, where a big sword is waiting above everyone. We see Pegasus for a brief moment, and we see that Diana, a very tiny Diana, is holding on to the handle of the sword.
Yeah, she gets it out and she does a little palm blasting on it, and in the next shot, it looks a lot bigger when she picks it up, and then in the next shot, it's still getting bigger,
right,
and bigger, and then she comes diving down at the Tetrahide with it.
Boom.
And then you got Pegasus riding shotgun, throwing fireballs.
Yep.
Then you get this majestic page with her coming down and swinging it straight through the Tetrahide.
Mm-hmm. So
look at the details of the innards.
Yeah, it basically slices the Tetrahide, it slices the whole left side of the Tetrahide off.
Right in twine.
Right, exactly. So we don't know what's going on there, because that's kind of where we leave the battle between the Tetrahide and Diana. But we flash back then to the White House, where basically it seems as though, if you recall, she didn't have the greatest relationship with the generals and everything. We see basically them saying, hey, you know what, no matter what happens, we still have a problem, basically. And that's kind of where we end the issue at.
They're not too happy with someone so powerful unchecked.
Right, exactly. And so there's only one more issue left in this first story arc, so we'll see where it goes from there. But lots of things that can play out. Obviously, we have, potentially, the game that's going to go on with the gods. We have, what happens with the government and Diana, after whatever happens with the Tetrahide in the final part next month. So there's lots of little strings that can still be pulled at. To kind of advance the story.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, exactly. Again, this has been a good run. Kelly Thompson really is hitting all the right notes for Diana, and Hayden Sherman. The art is
the art.
Is the art? Yeah. I mean, it's nothing.
It's grown on me in a lot of ways. It's definitely grown on me in a lot of ways. It's still not anything that you'll hear me call someone up like, yo, check out the art in this. Yeah,
I doubt it will win any awards for art, but he is keeping me interested, if nothing else, and that's all kind of that you can ask in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, it works for the story.
It definitely does. But that's going to be it for this edition of DC Comics Deep Dive. I don't know what we have next week. Is there an
nothing, dude. There's like
it's a 5-week month, so we won't have anything really.
I was looking at the books that came in Friday. I'm like, dude, there's like three books coming out, and I don't want half of them.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what we want to do for next week.
Might have to just talk Green Lantern, catch up on that.
I'm all for that.
There's a new Green Lantern issue. The Lex Luthor one shot is next week.
Oh, that's right. I'm assuming that's where he's going to actually be turned back to his old ways.
Might get his memories back, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. And then we can talk about some of the things that we learned. We have a new mini event coming up in April, starting in the Mark Waid titles. So
Summer of Superman's coming.
Exactly, the Summer of Superman's coming. So we got plenty of stuff that we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So don't forget to join us. We'll be back here again next Monday at 10 a.m. But that's going to be it for this edition. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the like button. Leave us a comment. Hit the notification bell. All that good stuff. But that's it. I am Paul. He is Mark.
But we are Legion.
And you're now leaving Sector 2815.